Asha Sharma's honeymoon phase of curated PR interviews and wearing sick Halo drip, oh look how cool and relatable she is over. And after big swings at SGF with a stacked Xbox, Xbox showcase and bribing a few loyal fans with some green, we now finally see what the big reset she's been talking about truly means. Shuttering studios and letting people go, of course. Not sure how's that different from Phil's layoffs and studio closures. Maybe it's a kiss on the cheek instead of a pat on the back before they bust your balls now. For that details, reach out to those directly affected. However, even before these news broke containment, it wasn't all roses and unicorns, because in my eyes the announced return to exclusives is yet another own goal by Microsoft. Not that exclusives aren't viable strategy, it's the execution that I take issue with. Why is that? Well, first of all, there is no real system for deciding on what is and what isn't an exclusive, other than case-by-case consideration, which, and you should know better, Xbox, defeats the purpose completely, because if you're using exclusives as a hardware sales driver and there's no outward transparency, well, you'll hardly make anyone buy an Xbox for so-and-so game when they have no idea if so-and-so will be one of your very few exclusives in the first place until you in your infinite wisdom decide last second before release. The frontier that once was is now completely irrelevant, and no guesswork to be done when Halo, Forza and Bethesda's games are multiplat. But yeah, sure, make Gears Xbox exclusive, and Clockwork Revolution of all games. Jesus fucking Christ, they got no idea what they're doing. But okay, let's say they can define some clear distinctions between what is and isn't an exclusive. Well, even then it's still a dumbass move given the timing. Sure, lean into this once you reveal Helix and the new generation commences, absolutely, but why would you do it right now at the tail end of the generation, after you increased hardware prices on 3 separate occasions, so the console is almost 50% more expensive than what its launch price was? And your install base is about a third of the size of Sony's. This is the period where you should be thinking of shipping to PlayStation and even Switch 2 whenever you can, not the opposite. Interestingly enough, Sharma is somewhat wary of this, as she recently went on record ruining the current prices of hardware. What makes it extra ironic is that not only is she coming from an AI background herself, but Satya Nadella's Microsoft is clearly an AI-first company. It seems that with Spencer's and Bond's departure, Xbox silently gave up on the dream of rising above the console war, buoyed up by the unending capital straight into the "this is an Xbox" fairy tale land where everyone pays for Game Pass, and backtracked to the previous, much more conservative model. While I dislike the future that Bond and her team fought for, I simultaneously believe it was within Microsoft's capabilities to get there if the never-ending flow of capital would continue. But here's the thing, Microsoft's focus lies elsewhere, in the land of AI agents where Copilot fucks up your spreadsheets. We're at the point where Xbox's priorities are at odds with Microsoft's core business. While Xbox suffers as the consumer electronics market gets more dire every day, it's Microsoft itself that has majorly contributed to that crisis in the first place, which means that Sharma's tools to rejuvenate a derailed platform that has struggled to attract consumers to enter its brand ecosystem for 2 consecutive console generations are very limited. Based on her messaging, seeing how prominently Xbox is pushing their legacy franchises, the likes of Halo and Gears, she seems to have settled for a risk minimization-induced stagnation, aka banking on the heavy hitters, praying there's still some life left in these aging franchises. Now the darker, more desperate side of this pivot reared its head. Whereas the Xbox of 2018 was out there boasting how they're investing into smaller, more experimental studios that might not be as lucrative on paper, but bring a certain level of prestige and diversity to their portfolio, that sentiment no longer holds true for the Xbox of 26. Though arguably it hasn't been that way for a while now. Tango. Humor me, let's go on a weird tangent together for a sec, and I promise we will eventually circle back with hopefully somewhat decent analogy. I've watched Formula 1 my whole life, and F1 from time to time a big car manufacturer has the compulsion to try their hand at it. Sometimes they enter as a full works team, sometimes they settle with being an engine manufacturer. Very often it ends sour. These are all huge companies, and while that comes with a lot of strengths compared to the smaller and leaner racing teams of the past, the planning and management are always the weak point. At the beginning, there's a long-term vision of sorts, maybe a 5-year plan like the Soviet Union used to make a country famously economically sound and flexible. The race team is then given a degree of independence and the journey begins. That is, until the next change in management, until unexpected market conditions alter brand priorities, until your racing department is branded the reason why the company is hemorrhaging money during a tense quarterly meeting. Toyota's whole tenure was in this vein, Renault ditto. BMW infamously struggled, and the only season where they could be serious title contenders, in 2008, they instead stopped all development in favor of big regulation shake-up in 2009 and built a tractor so bad they withdrew from the championship altogether at the end of the season. But perhaps no manufacturer is as synonymous with snatching defeat from the jaws of victory as Honda. After a few lukewarm seasons, Honda decided to end their F1 tenure in 2008 to brace for the hit the financial crisis would have on their business. However, they were developing the 2009 car for some time already, so Honda symbolically sold the team for a single pound to Ross Brawn, who took over the operations. The following year, Brawn GP dominated thanks to the R&D work made by Honda, but with the brand no longer there to benefit from this success. Later on in the V6 turbo hybrid era that began in 2014, Honda returned, but this time only as a power unit manufacturer. The results were tragic, giving birth to now classic GP2 engine memes. It took years to get those engines to a competitive state, but they pulled it off, and in 2021 they were there to propel Max Verstappen to his maiden title. Unfortunately for them, they missed out on the, for Honda much more important, Constructors' Championship. In the 3 following seasons, Verstappen and Red Bull dominated and won both the drivers' and constructors' race, their cars still housing the engine Honda built. But, Honda being Honda, in 2020, before all the success, they made the decision to wind down their motorsport program again at the end of 2021 season, which means that each of those 3 titles belonged to a newly established RBPT, Red Bull powertrains, despite not only those engines being de facto made by Honda, but also maintained by their engineers even beyond 21. So, what do I see when I look at these headlines? I look at how they're closing down Ninja Theory, and I see a studio that went through a big transformation, moving offices, growing the team, building a state-of-the-art motion and performance capture stage, and spending years perfecting their production pipeline, so they're now capable of building a game considerably bigger than their previous one in half the time. And Xbox had been there since 2018 to fund all of it. So what do they do at Xbox, and by extension at Microsoft? At a company with belly so massive they no longer see their dick. A company that has grown too big to manage itself. A company that has been sowing for years, and now when it's time to reap, they're panicking about the price of the seeds and are feverishly trying to sell off the fertile land. They do Honda.